Hey YouTube, what is going on? Brandon here with Brandon's Garage, and today we are going to be replacing the engine cover for the 2012 Nissan Altima. I did have to use quite a bit of tools, so all the links are going to be in the description below for all the tools I used, as well as the engine cover that I ended up putting on my vehicle. Just to mention a few: 12 millimeter, 10 millimeter, 14, 16 millimeter, 18 millimeter, and some of these are going to have to be deep sockets. You're going to want to have a torque wrench or another like an impact drill or something. Okay, so that's the first thing you're doing, is removing the engine cover, and then I'm getting right into removing all the spark plugs. These plugs and coils are new, so I'm not replacing that. You will be removing a lot of 10 millimeter bolts, so you're going to need this 10 millimeter socket. These bolts I'm removing are for the coils and to remove the spark plugs, but all around the engine cover itself there's a lot of 10 millimeters, so you're going to be using that quite a bit. Right here I'm using a 14 millimeter deep socket. Preferably you're going to want to use a 6-point and something that's magnetic so that it pulls it right out, and I'm going to leave a link for something very similar to that in the description below. As you can see here, there is a lot of oil dripping out when I am placing my socket down in there, and that's just a sign that the old engine cover, has kind of deteriorated and oil is seeping through, and so those seals have broken. And you can also see on top, you can see here the spark plugs are pretty filled with oil, and also you can see through the engine cover that oil is getting through, seeping through one way or another all around the engine cover. That's when you know you're gonna need to replace it. So here you see me, I am removing these bolts here. These are all different sizes, anywhere from 16 to 18 millimeters. Right here I'm using regular sockets, but with some of these they are very hard to get off, and I'll explain later in the video that this is one of the harder parts of this process. A lot of these bolts are going to require a torque wrench to remove. Now you see me here removing some 12 millimeters, and that's to remove the alternator away from the engine bracket. And then you've got some other 10 millimeters that I'm removing around the engine bay. And then of course all the hoses, everything that's connected to the engine cover, you are going to want to get all of those off and start placing them on the new engine cover. Alright, this is the torque wrench that I ended up using. This is 50 foot-pounds all the way up to 250. These are the bolts that I'm pointing out here that are going to give you the most difficulties. So you can kind of spot them out when you're doing this and really know which ones are going to give you. They're really the corner, the edge bolts that are really going to give you the most problems. But once those are released, it just comes right up and you can remove the engine bracket. And just a quick note, these really difficult bolts are they're going to be the 14 millimeter deep socket that you're going to need on those. Alright, here is the new engine cover. The gasket comes separate, so you're going to want to attach that. And you can already see here I'm kind of fitting that hose there that comes from the air intake. So this part is to me seems to be good quality. Of course, those seals that I'm pointing out, that is really what ends up deteriorated over time. Now you are going to want to make sure that you have the right glue. I will link it in the description below, but this is for the engine cover specifically, and I'm going to apply a little bit just to attach the gasket. This is not necessarily required, but I ended up doing it this way. And then I fit in the gasket, of course, on the engine cover. You're going to need to do this if you're buying this particular part. That glue does go on. You're going to want to clean, once you remove the old engine cover, clean that area and apply the new adhesive. around that area where the engine cover meets the engine. You know, it's going to be outlined pretty good. So as you can see, these 3 bolts that I just took out with the impact wrench, they have been the most difficult part of this process, but with a good impact wrench and a 14 millimeter, you know, I would recommend a 1/2 inch, and I'll leave links for all this below, of course. You should be able to get this engine bracket, basically is what it is, removed. This one at the very end is a little bit difficult, but that is really the biggest part of this job. As soon as I get this last bolt off, we should be able to release everything, and I should be able to place the new engine cover right on. So as you can see there's this one part that fits on top of the larger bracket. That one comes off first, and then you're going to need to remove an additional bolt here on the side. I believe this one was 16 millimeters as well. That previous one was an 18 millimeter that you're going to need to remove finally to release it all, and it'll all come off. There's a particular way, I believe, that Nissan engineers put these bolts in together, and I can't really tell, but if you can tell through this video, whenever I am removing some of these bolts, that's really going to end up helping you throughout this process. So as you can see, this holds the engine in place. So this takes a lot. There's 2 18 millimeter bolts that need to be taken out, and then quite a few others that are 16 to 12 millimeters that need to be taken out of this piece. But once you get this off, you're good to go. You can take off your engine cover as long as you replaced all the or removed all the other bolts. This is the biggest challenge with this project. Okay, and here of course I'm just removing the remaining 10 millimeter bolts that you know, were blocked from this engine bracket. And with a flathead screwdriver, you can now remove the engine cover once all the bolts and everything, the bracket, is removed. You can see there the rings that go around the spark plugs. Those have deteriorated, and oil has been allowed to seep through because of that, and that causes misfires. That causes you know, a whole host of problems that you could have with your engine that could be causing a check engine light. And that's why it's so important to stay on top of this. If you can do it yourself, you can save yourself some money. Okay, and here I'm applying the glue. I've cleaned it, that whole area, of course, where I'm going to do the application, just so that it sticks a lot better. Okay, and there you see it. There is your new engine cover. It is installed there, and from here you just start reinstalling everything back together, all your 10 millimeters. There are quite a few of them, so you're gonna spend a good amount of time on that. And then once you get into reinstalling the engine bracket, that's a whole nother challenge. You're gonna want to of course be creative with how you put those bolts back in. Okay, so you do want to make sure that your spark plugs and coils, everything is attached before you do install the bracket, because once this is in place, it can be hard to get to some of the engine. Okay, so the way I put these bolts in here in this video is not the only way you can do it. And actually, I recommend that you kind of play around at first, kind of, using your mechanical experience. And if you don't have any, well, then you kind of have to wing it. Alright, so like I said, I'm going to be linking to all of the parts and tools that I ended up using. This is the job fully finished now, and I can tell you that this job was well worth it. It took away my check engine light, and the car runs a lot smoother. So I hope that you found this video helpful, and if you did, please make sure to like and subscribe. That's really all I have for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time.